Good morning. My name is Randy Smerik. Thank you so much for joining me for this talk. Really want to thank you for giving me this time. To give you a little bit of background on my side is I have had the opportunity to start quite a number of companies. I've started 7 so far in my career, and during a period of doing 7 companies, you just learn a lot whether you want to or not. The purpose of my talk today is to really be very prescriptive, meaning I'm not going to just sort of share stories and you guys figure out how it applies to you. But I'm actually going to be so bold as to go, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. If you do this, this is what will happen from my experience. And that's really how I'm going to do the presentation this morning. The purpose of this talk is to really help you answer the question of, should you take Series A money? And there's a big difference between taking Series A money than maybe what you've taken up until now through either an accelerator or through convertible debt or something along those lines. And so I'm going to give you a little bit about a guidance on what to look for, what to avoid, some of the ramifications of doing that. Just to refresh your memory, what we're doing here in this presentation is for folks that are looking, as I said, to move to the Series A round. And I'll define what that means, because a lot of people have different definitions for it. So a lot of what I'm going to do in this talk also is give you my view of key steps, key definitions that you're going to run into along the way, and also to give you the perspective of people that may be sitting across the table from you that you don't necessarily know is their perspective. Because I've learned the more you can understand somebody else's perspective, especially if you're negotiating against them, the better off you could be. So you may be an accelerator graduate. Anybody here work with Real Ventures or Founder Fuel? Anybody like that? So I've been a Founder Fuel mentor for a long time and I have a lot of respect for that organization. So first of all, we're here to talk about money to a certain extent. During the course of my presentation, I'm going to talk about teams. I'm going to talk about culture, the kind of things that you want to pull together. But it really comes down to, are you at the stage where you want to do Series A? So if you look at the chart behind me, there's a lot of different steps you can go through. And as I put over to the side as a caveat, there's a lot of intermixing between these. But in general, as you start a company, you'll probably start off with raising money from family and friends. You'll then maybe use your social graph to bring in some people you know from, say, the Startup Festival here. You may do a seed round with real angel investors. You may work with a super angel, and a super angel just means you get a lot more money from them and they spend more time doing investing than maybe a traditional angel investor. Or you may work with a traditional VC. And by a traditional venture capitalist, what I mean is someone in Montreal or New York or Boston or Paris or San Francisco that is part of an organization that raises money themselves and they invest it for those people. And I'll talk more about what VCs really are, because sometimes there's confusion on what they do and how they're different than angels. But in general, an angel investor or super angel, they're investing their own money. A traditional VC is investing somebody else's money, and that somebody else has expectations that the VC has to live up to. So for you in this room, I'm assuming that you're here or close to being here, meaning that you're probably on the left-hand side of that line. You've raised convertible debt, or you've gotten money through angels or friends and family, and you're looking at doing more traditional Series A. Just to make sure the terms are clear, for convertible debt, you should really think of that as being a loan. Anybody here have convertible debt today in your companies? Probably a lot of you do. Convertible debt just simply means you've taken a loan of some kind, and once you decide to actually do an equity round, and I'll explain what that means in just a second, but once you decide to do an equity round, then that debt converts to equity. And equity just simply means that somebody's going to have ownership in your company. So if you formed your company correctly, then you have created a company that has shares issued. You as the founder have shares. Hopefully you've allocated shares in a pool for your employees. And then you're going to have shares that you're going to allocate if people invest money in you. And that would be called an equity round because I give you $500,000, you give me 10% of your company. That would be called an equity round because what I'm getting out of my $500,000 is immediate and direct equity in your company. And that usually comes with a lot of ramifications. It's usually more difficult to structure those deals. You usually have to have more lawyers involved in it. That's why you wait till later on in the game. With convertible debt, it's a lot simpler. You basically say, Randy, thank you very much for your $500,000. We're going to give you terms as far as a loan. We're going to tell you approximately how much the company is valued. And when and if we do an equity round, then you're going to convert at this rate. And usually you give me a little bit better deal. So once you do an equity round, if Andre here decides to also give you $500,000, he's not going to get as much of the company as I do because I jumped in sooner when things were more risky. But this is basically where you're at. And those are key terms that if you're still not familiar with the terms convertible round or convertible financing or equity, definitely do some research offline because having those concepts firmly in your mind are extremely essential as you're going from one phase to the next. So why am I standing here in front of you? The purpose of me being here and wanting to share my thoughts is I really want to make sure that everything you do and decide, you're doing with your eyes wide open. Because you're going to do things you don't want to do. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, unless you're the luckiest person on earth and all of a sudden, your product just takes off like crazy, people are throwing money at you at amazingly good terms. If that's the case, you don't need to be here. You're doing really fine yourself. But if you're in the normal 99% of people, and like where I've been on every company I've started, you have to work hard every step of the way to get the attention you want. And yeah, people may be wanting to throw money at you, but keep in mind, they may be throwing money at you at really terrible terms for you. So just because somebody wants to give you money doesn't mean that that's necessarily a good thing. And so this point I'm making on the slide is really important because I'm going to tell you things like, if you do this, these bad things could happen. But I want to be super clear, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means when you do it, just know that this bad thing could happen later, and you should just simply be aware of it. Just like if you take out a loan on your house and you may have a big payment 7 years from now, it still may be the right thing to do, but don't forget you have this big payment 7 years from now. You have to be very, very aware of that. So Series A, how do you decide, right? So the bottom line is, do you believe in your idea, your plan, your current execution so much that you basically want to bring in adult leadership? Because to a certain extent, this is what it comes down to. I'm assuming you have a company, I'm assuming you have a team, you've raised a certain amount of money, even if it's money that comes from yourself. I'm assuming you have customers and a market to at least some extent. And you've decided that you're doing so well that bringing in other people that maybe have done this longer and better or know your space better is going to make your company stronger. And this is typically where you bring in institutional and professional venture capitalists, because they are going to help you with connections. They are going to help you navigate difficult waters, and it just brings a lot of credibility. If you bring in some of the best VCs in San Francisco or New York or Montreal or Toronto, and you go to your next customer meeting, that gives you some credibility. You're also probably going to be having a more formal board of directors. You may have a board of directors today, but it may be more of a, on your board may be your brother or a cousin or a friend or somebody you know somewhat casually. Where typically if you move to a Series A and you do equity financing, your board of directors are real. These are, you take their advice seriously. They have a vote. And you typically introduce a lot of governance. Governance around spending, governance around what kind of deals you can sign, governance around hiring and firing at the top levels of the organization. So you want to decide, do you want to have that kind of adult leadership? Because it does have an impact on you if you are the CEO or on the founding team. Also, do you believe in your idea, your plan, and your execution so much that you really need a lot of money now? Because if you go down the path of doing a Series A, you do not think about this as being an incremental $250,000. Usually a Series A is you're raising enough money to get you 18 to 36 months. So it's a big chunk. So if you're a software company in the internet space, typically a Series A would be in the $2.5 to $3.5 million range. And so this is bringing in a lot of money. You're going to have to really figure out how you're going to spend it and manage it. You really want to have a plan around that. It's assuming big growth levels. And you also should be aware that because you're getting so much money, hopefully this will be the most expensive money that you ever raise. Remember, when you do fundraising, you should just think about it as if you're buying money. When you go out and you buy a car, or even if you buy a vacation, you do a lot of price shopping on that because you know you're buying something. You give money, you get a car. The same thing's true here. You're buying money by giving up equity of your company. So for example, if you raise $2 million right now, maybe you'll give up 25% of the company. That's expensive. The next time you raise $2 million, hopefully you're only giving up 8% of the company. That's a lot less expensive. So you should keep that in mind when you raise money. It's going to be the most expensive you ever do. So you should think about, do you really need 3.5 if you can get by with 2.5? 3.5 obviously sounds better, gives you more of a cushion. Maybe you think you'll sleep better at night. Maybe it's the right thing to do. I'm not telling you not to do it. Just remember, this is going to be the most expensive money you ever raise, hopefully. If it's not, that just means you're probably failing. And you believe in your idea, your plan, and your execution so much that you're probably going to be giving up primary control of your company. So if you have not done an equity round yet, and you're not working with people like institutional VCs, you're probably in control, meaning if you want to sell your company tomorrow, you can. If you want to issue new shares, you can. You can do pretty much anything you want within reason. As soon as you go down the path of raising a Series A and an equity round, probably, like 90% sure, the people giving you money are going to put in what they call protective provisions. You're going to get a document and there's going to be a section called protective provisions. And they write it in a way that's very difficult for kind of a normal person to understand. And keep in mind, protective provisions are not there to protect you. Not at all. I do see a couple of investors in the room. It does protect you guys. But for the entrepreneur and the team, the protective provisions are there to protect the investor. So typically, there will be language in there not written in a super clear way, but the end result is you cannot issue shares unless they approve. Meaning you cannot give up any more of your company to anybody else unless they approve it. You cannot do an M&A. If somebody comes along and offers you $20 million for your company, you cannot accept that offer unless they agree, because you're basically selling shares by doing that. They may even have terms that you cannot bring anybody in at the C level, meaning a VP of marketing or a chief operating officer, unless they interview and approve that hire. They also may have control over strategic directions the company goes, moving into new markets. That sounds bad, could be bad, or it could be really good. Because these people are smart, they care about their money, they've done this a whole bunch of times. Maybe the hire you're going to do is genuinely stupid, and they save you from yourself. Or the M&A you're going to do doesn't make any sense where you're at in the company, and they're going to save you from yourself. Or maybe not. Right? The point is you just need to know that when you make this change, because the purpose of this talk is should you take Series A, just keep in mind that there are these types of ramifications. Also, I see many of you taking notes and so on. If anybody would like to afterwards, if you give me your card, I'll send you a copy of the slide deck. So this is self-awareness time. Do you want to do this or not? Do you think you're at that right stage of your company that you want to take on these potential ramifications in order to grow correctly however you define correctly right now. And if yes, then it's game on. And let's do this thing, and let's figure out how we get a bunch of money, understand what the ramifications are, what are the other elements you want in your company to make it be a big success. So you keep hearing about passion, right? In order to have a company, you have to do it with passion or don't do it at all. You have to believe in something with such passion that it becomes reality. Lack of passion's fatal. Talent isn't much without passion behind it. Find your passion. You can change the world with passion. Definition is having such strong feelings that it's barely controllable. And VCs and other people that believe in you are going to believe in you because you need passion. And you absolutely have to have passion in what you do. The most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that can have that passion and can have that passion be so infectious that everybody around you just wants to be on board. But you want to have that passion in a way that it's also controlled. You need to be self-aware. So I have 9 points I'm going to go through in this talk. Here's number 1. Strong advice before you move down to Series A, because I gave you all those things about, do you really believe in your idea, your plan, and your execution so much? Well, you better be self-aware on that. And I'm assuming that all of you are leaders in your organization. If not the CEO, you're on the founding team. You have really direct control over where the company is going in one way, shape, or form. So it's not sexy at all to do a lot of metrics and to watch a few numbers go by. But if you are the gauge and you know the gauge that you're really trying to understand, then you're going to do a lot better job of being self-aware. Probably most of you have seen a simple chart like this before many times. The whole purpose of it is the world starts with data. Hopefully you can turn that data into something meaningful in the form of information. Hopefully you're smart enough to take that information to make the right decisions. Hopefully once you've made a decision, you actually take action. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't do that. And then those actions should affect what kind of data you are going to be taking. The reality is, it happens to me all the time. It happens to every single person I know. Unless you're conscious of it and really force yourself, you spend way too much time worrying about the data and spending less time worrying about what you're going to do with it, what it means, and what actions you're going to take. Spend way more time on that side. Just kind of think about what you do each day. Are you spending more time gathering the information or spending time looking at the information? I know a lot of people that are developing apps, they put all this time and effort into gathering all the world's greatest statistics on whatever user does. And then when I ask them, well, what kind of tools do you have to actually look at it and then change your product based on it? And there's a long pause. They have all this great data, but they don't do a lot with it. The same thing's true with metrics on your business, whether it's revenue, community, ramp up, whatever it might be. So it's very easy for an entrepreneur to lose perspective on where their business is going. I know a lot of people, they have very little customers, all of a sudden they sign a huge customer or partner, and then immediately let's do a Series A. Maybe the right thing to do, but you really want to make sure that hey, that could have just been a one-off. Is now really the right time to raise $2.5 million? And because of the fact you have passion, and yeah, you better have passion, and maybe you're not spending enough time on the big picture, you may be making a very bad decision. Also, I think a lot of people feel that as they try to make these decisions, things are black and white. It's going to be obvious. Yes, I should do a Series A. No, I shouldn't. Yes, I should work with that VC. No, I shouldn't. Yes, I should pick this strategic partner. No, I shouldn't. The reality is everything that you've probably seen up until now and everything going forward, I guarantee you, is just going to be some shade of gray, right? And so you want the data to help give you guidance, but you also just want to have some big picture milestones that keeps you grounded on what's really happening. So you want to have guideposts that you can basically follow. So what I do with all the companies I work with and that I employ myself in the businesses that I run, and I have several that I'll talk more about during this talk, But I basically have something that I call macro reflective monitoring. Sounds really fancy, but it's something I came up with about 10 or 12 years ago. And the point is that don't let yourself get caught on the weeds of everything. You should pick 2 or 3 things that you look at every month or so, try not to do it any more often, that you believe are really the best indicators of where your business is going. Really take an active role of not getting involved down in the weeds on those points. Even if you're a team of just 4 or 5 people, it's good for each person to let other people figure out those specific things, and you're just there to basically be a mirror. I'll give you a really good example of what happens all the time. Let's say you're the CEO, you have a VP of sales. The VP of sales shows you the pipeline. The pipeline looks amazing, right? You have 12 people in the pipeline, most of them are at 50% or more. The chief sales officer knows everybody at their companies. They have barbecues with their wife and kids all the time. Things are looking good. There's just no way that they're not going to close probably 50% of these over the next several months. Things are great. You calculate the pipeline, you make plans based on that. Month goes by, you get the update. Hey, well, we didn't actually get to have the barbecue this time, and this moved out. But look at these other 3 people that came in. And before you know it, 7 or 8 months have gone by. Everything still looks great. Your VP of sales is loved by everybody. There's wonderful connections. But the reality is you haven't closed any business. But boy, next month is going to be awesome because you didn't close the last couple of months because, it was summer. It's July 9th. Who's closing deals in July in Europe or Canada or the United States? But boy, in September, when everybody comes back, you have a big meeting on September 10th. You're going to close everything then. Very, very common thing. And all of a sudden, a year goes by. There's really simple techniques you can do. You can just say to the person way back in February, oh, okay, so you have 10 customers. You think you're going to close 7 of them. Okay, I'm just going to write that down right now. You think you're going to close 10 of them by April 30th. What do you think the top 2 are? Great. Wonderful. So I'm just going to write that down like a time capsule. And when we meet again, we're just going to pull out that piece of paper. Just something that simple, right? Not talking about how much the money is going to be, not talking about who it's going to be necessarily, but just the big picture of, are you really going to close 4 of these customers in the next 4 months? And what are you going to do next month? If you can be that guidepost, if you can be that mirror or the time capsule, you'll be amazed how effective that is as a technique. And the more you get down in the weeds, the more you're going to get sucked into, well, everything's actually still okay because it's July and that's why we're not closing business. So not getting in the weeds is actually the key to success here. And I'm bringing it up in this context because not only is it just a good idea to do, but it's also going to help you decide, is now the right time to do Series A? So the moral of the story is, gather the data. You got to have the data, but be a lot more concerned about and consumed by the quality of the data than the quantity, right? Are you going to close this business or not if we're looking at sales? Identify that small handful of metrics. And then just really make sure you budget the resources to follow up on it. And that's usually the last one is where people really fail. I mean, another good example would be when you do a product development roadmap, especially on this last point. Time and time again, I'll see proper amount of time for requirements, proper amount of time for development, proper amount of time budgeted to go out and work with beta customers. They allow 4 weeks to take beta input, and then they go generally available. Well, the reality is, if you really go to customers and if you're really getting input based on that beta or initial results, 4 weeks is not enough time to do anything, right? So I've seen it where, well, yeah, we got all this great feedback, but there isn't time to incorporate it. Well, then why did you do it, right? I took all this data, but I don't really have time to analyze it. I have a big board meeting. We just have to decide right now whether we're doing the Series A or not. No, if you're not going to have enough time to actually look at the data, then don't even bother getting it. As a plug, so I'm sure a lot of you know one of the the founders and folks that run Startup Festival here, Alistair Kroll, based in Montreal. If you're not familiar with this book, you should buy this book and you should read this book, because everything I've talked about over the last 5 or 6 minutes is really what this book is all about. How do you pick those 1, 2, or 3 metrics? How do you incorporate a philosophy of metric-driven improvement into your organization and into what you do? This is the best book I've ever read on actually addressing that head on. Okay, so assuming you've done the self-awareness, and assuming you've taken this step back, and yes, you do believe in your idea and your plan and your execution, then now's the time to take the money. The key thing is, number 2, you got to have the right team. In general, as you attract venture capitalists or other large chunks of money, and if you're at the stage you want to raise $2.5 to $3 million or more, these are obviously rules of thumb, then you better have a good team. Team doesn't need to be 30 people, but you better have all the roles covered. This isn't 1 or 2 or 3 people going forward in general, right? There's exceptions to every role. You should have the key roles of somebody on marketing, somebody on sales, somebody on development, architects, people that do the real work on coding, testing. You want to have all those areas covered. Because people are literally everything, and never forget that. The amount of money you raise is the fuel that runs the car, but it's not going to matter at all unless you have a great team. And when I say team, I also mean culture. And if you are the CEO, or if you are on the C level, meaning you're a founding team member, somebody is controlling the organization, the culture you create, the team you have, literally means everything. It's the only way you're going to scale, because I have really great ideas, but I can only do so much each day. The only way that my ideas are going to scale is if I can infect my ideas into other people. Those other people understand their role and relationship on executing that idea and how they work with everybody else. And the culture that they do that on. Can they trust people? Can they trust where the team's going to be 6 months from now? And the reality is, for most businesses, things are going to fundamentally change after you finish the business plan. Your assumptions are going to change. You're going to find out the market's different. Google's all of a sudden going to announce something that's sort of kind of exactly what you started off doing. Something's going to change. And it's your team that's going to help you survive. Because you have to have a team that's going to be quick on their feet, clever, help come up with the ideas that are going to allow you to pivot in a sneaky way. You never really want to let people know you're pivoting explicitly, but if you can pivot in a sneaky way, well, of course we were never always going to do that. Of course we were going to do this. This was just the setup, and this is how we're going to go, and your team understands that and works with you. Every serious VC I know is going to beat you up over your business plan. They're going to want to understand exactly what segments you're going after. They're going to want to see all the revenue models, but they know in their minds that when they come back 2 years later, there's probably going to be nothing in your business plan, or not much, that actually survived 2 years. They know there's going to be big, big changes. So they're going to be wanting to make sure you can create that plan, because you have to start somewhere, but they're really going to be looking at you and your team to understand how dynamic and flexible you are. Your team is how your message and your culture is carried. And obviously the flip side is, if you don't have the right team, that can destroy you. And that's really where a culture comes in. A culture is almost like a self-policing. If you accidentally hire somebody that turns out to be different than you thought and is evil for the organization for whatever reason, either because of ethics, bad behavior, whatever it might be, yeah, you maybe can see it, but you also want the organization to have a culture that will flesh that out and identify it and sort of purge that person from the organization. It can be very effective. For me, I've had the opportunity to create a lot of different businesses. I've created 6 in the tech space. My background is database, security protocols, networking protocols, social media. Those have been a lot of the areas, big data, analytics. But I've also created a tequila distillery in Jalisco, Mexico, that I did about 13 years ago that goes very well. I'm always bringing bottles here to Montreal. It's delicious. And that's the middle picture. That's my team in the state of Jalisco outside the little town of Tequila. And then the team on the other side is my restaurant in San Diego. 6 years ago, I started an Italian restaurant that's doing very well. As I mentioned at the beginning, just 2 weeks ago it was announced we're going to be in the Michelin Guide. Woohoo! If you're thank you. If you're a restaurateur, that's like the number one thing. But whether it's high tech, whether it's a tequila company, whether it's a restaurant, and I run all three today, everything I just said about teams is true. It doesn't matter what you do. These points are universal. And especially in the tech world, teams are more than just employees. So most people think of the team as being, if you look at the bottom of the circle, your direct employees, your contractors. But you will not do as well as you could if you do not also embrace your board of directors. Because remember, at this point, you have a real board of directors that's not your cousin or your friend that you had from college. You have real investors that are, again, not people that like you. These are people that are working with you professionally, and they are working with you because you are going to make them and their investors money. Your suppliers can be essential, and your major customers are essential. Think of all of these people as your team and put time and energy into them, because you're only going to be successful if you can manage all of them. Don't let your board of directors be adversaries. That can easily happen. Don't let your investors be adversaries. I'm not saying you're going to agree with everything. You may have serious fights, but always remember that they're part of your team and that once they're on board, you need them, they need you, but you need them as well. And as I said, teams are universal. I kind of like this slide in the sense that if you look at that little box, if there's something up there in white, it's related to one of my tech companies. If it's yellow, it's my restaurant. If it's orange, it's a tequila distillery. You can see in every case, there's complementary roles. I won't go through them all, but if you're say a software company, you got to have a really good software architect or CEO, or CTO, I mean. If you have a restaurant, that's the same as your executive chef, defining and creating your product. Or it's the same as your master tequila distiller. These are the people that create your product. And the same thing goes on down. For my tequila business, I have a distillery manager that does all the operational nuts and bolts of quality control, distribution. In a restaurant, you have a general manager that's in charge of P&L on a daily basis. And if you're a software company, you probably have a COO that worries about the nuts and bolts of payroll and when are accounts payable due, and so on. Teams are universal. And the point of that is, it's just a really good idea to really think about your team as you're planning to grow your company and take a lot of money. And everything is a balance, right? Projects are more important than money, and what I mean by that is really understanding the mission, what projects you have underway, is more important than raising your next chunk of money. It's not either or, but it's more important. Also, as your team grows, there could be pushback on your original idea. People fundamentally want to change the company. Don't necessarily kill that idea that got you started, right? Jumping from one thing to the next can really hurt you. Don't worry about making everything consistent. You may treat one organization completely different than the other, and that may be the right thing to do. If you try to make everything consistent amongst everybody, you could really affect the talent that you have. Everybody says to be really transparent. To a certain extent, I agree. I've been doing this for 30 years. Transparency, if not managed correctly, can kill an organization. You as the CEO, or you as the person on the founding team, you should have no problem deciding what you decide to share with people and what you don't. I know what I'm saying is controversial. There's a lot of people out there that are like, everything should be transparent. Everybody should see the numbers, everybody should see what's going on with sales and everything else. The reality of the situation is, and I've seen it firsthand, unless that's done really, really well, and I've never figured out how to do it really, really well, most organizations cannot truly handle all the information. Because the reality is, things can be scary at certain times, and you don't want everybody to be scared. As the CEO, you don't necessarily want to have the chief programmer calling you up at 2 a.m. when they realize that their idea maybe really won't work. And you have a huge customer 2 days later that's coming in. And that person's sitting there at 2 a.m. going, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Now, the reality is they'll probably figure it out. That's why you hired them. That's why you like them. But you don't, it would be fully transparent for them to call you up immediately and say, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know how to make it work. But that isn't necessarily going to be good for you, because that's going to cause you stress and worry when you should be worrying about customer development or whatever it might be. The same thing's true the other way around. So again, I know it's controversial, but my advice would be really think about transparency, decide what everybody needs to know. Everybody does not need to know everything. On hiring, take it super seriously, involve every single person you can. My advice would be when a new hire comes into your organization, unless you're an organization of 500 people, but if we're talking 25 people or less, no one should ever be surprised when they see a new face. Nothing is going to make the rest of your team more angry than people just sort of randomly coming and going and nobody understands why they're there. Everybody should understand exactly why she's sitting in that desk, what role she's going to do, and how you're going to relate to that person. Again, your organization will get to some size where that's just not feasible anymore, but especially at the early stages, don't do that. I see people doing that all the time, and I just shake my head. It's so easy to involve the team. When it comes to firing, probably involving the team less. If you have a great culture, everybody's going to understand why. If you do let somebody go, immediately get everybody together and explain to it then. But you don't need to go around and say, should I fire Frank? Should I fire Frank? That's not healthy. On the hiring side, healthy, not on the firing side. And definitely if you think somebody isn't a good match in the organization, figure out a way, legally, figure out a way to get that person out of the organization as fast as you possibly can, because you should trust your gut feel. It's really, really rare when I meet somebody that says, oh, I fired that person too fast. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. What I hear 100% of the time is, I should have done it 6 months ago. Because you just went through 6 months of pain when you could have gotten that person out, I'm not trying to be cold and harsh here, but the reality is that the person's not a match and you know it's not a match, probably everybody else knows it's not a match, and everybody's wondering, why is this person here? And it does not help with your leadership, does not help with your credibility. So again, you have to be smart, you have to do your research, you got to do it legally, but as soon as you realize that person's not a match, don't keep giving that person more and more chances, because the likelihood of them turning around in your mind, extremely low. Third thing, structuring your company. So if you do decide that you are going to raise a bunch of money, you want to invest serious money. And to be clear what I mean by that in this case, we're talking like $15,000, $20,000. You want to budget and invest about that much money with a good corporate law firm that's going to be your partner to create the company correctly from the beginning. I know that for a lot of you, depending on the stage you're at, you're like, look, I don't got $25,000. Okay, if you don't have $25,000 to create the company correctly, then I would tell you, well, maybe you shouldn't be raising a Series A, right? You should be at the stage where you should be able to do that. And my advice is doing it before you take a bunch of money. You want to have this really wonderful foundation in place before you raise the money. For a lot of you that haven't been through this yet, it's easy to think of a corporate attorney as just being that person that gets in the way. It's like going to the dentist, very annoying. You'll see them twice a year. No, if you have a good corporate attorney and if you really understand what they do, they are a strategic partner by your side. I'm not suggesting you talk to them every day, but when you're entering into strategic relationships, when you have board of director meetings, things like that, those people are going to be really helpful to give you guidance. Strong advice. It's also very good from the very beginning to have a good accounting firm. Okay? Here again, you don't spend that much money, but you may be spending even $1,000 a month or $500 a month to have a really good accounting firm that really is making sure that you have the right bookkeeping from the beginning, that it's in a very organized way, that you can track everything, that they're going to create the chart of accounts that you're going to move forward with. Again, they're going to be your partner. You'll probably meet with them once a month. You can do, this is necessary to have even before you're doing revenue. I can't stress enough, good corporate attorney, good accounting right from the beginning. Create an employee stock option program. Put that in place, have it be defined at the beginning. For those of you that don't know what this is, let's say you have 100 shares you've issued in your company. You may allocate 10 of those shares, 10%, to an employee stock option pool. That doesn't mean necessarily that anybody has any of them, but there's a pool there with a well-defined set of how those shares are allocated. That way, as you're hiring people, you're going to be able to bring them in under the right structure right from the beginning. It's a small detail. Try not to allocate all those shares until you get the VCs on board, because they can share in the burden of that 10%. It's a longer discussion, but you definitely want to have an employee stock option pool. And then if you can, try to have a real board of directors. If you can have a real board of directors, meaning in the bylaws, in the company structure, it says you're going to have 3 board of directors or 7 or whatever it is, try to have real ones before you bring a VC on also. Otherwise, when the VC comes on, they're going to dictate everything you do from that point forward. And I think at this stage, you having a little bit more control, and then they just influence is better. It doesn't cost that much money. Have director and officer insurance at the beginning. It sounds like a detail. It sounds like a small thing, but it's not. If you have D&O insurance, you're going to attract the right people. Like, for example, I am on a lot of boards. I will not join a board unless it's there. Basically, if you're not familiar with what it is, basically it's insurance that if for some reason the company gets sued, without that insurance, if the company is sued, me being on the board of directors would be sued as well. So let's say you created a product, somebody died because of it, there's a $20 million lawsuit, the company has $500,000 in the bank, they take that money, then they go to me, then they go to the next board of directors, and so on. The D&O insurance protects that. And obviously, you're not going to sign up unless you have something like that. The whole purpose for doing it is to allow you to attract right from the beginning good people that will be advisors and on your board. Structure your company correctly from the start before you take the $2.5 to $3 million. The fourth thing, let's talk about success. The whole reason that you guys are doing all this is that you want to be successful. And what does success mean? Well, the answer could be, well, it's different for her and him and him. Success might be that I take over the market share of ride sharing or whatever it might be. But the reality is the definition of success for all of us is actually the same. And let me tell you why. Because this context is going to be sort of a guide for everything else in the presentation. The reality is there's 4 outcomes for everybody that's in this room. Kind of not 5 or 6 or 3, there's 4. More than likely you're going to fail. In the restaurant world, it's just a fact, 9 out of 10 restaurants statistically fail in the first year. It's the world's stupidest business. For all of you in the room, it's not much different though, as far as the statistics. So the most likely outcome for everybody in this room is that it's going to fail. Like, done. All the money you raised, all the work you did results in literally nothing. Clearly not the outcome you want. Another outcome is what I call a lifestyle business. And what that means is you start your business is running. Let's say you and your founders are making $130,000 a year. You're just happy. And the business is doing that, and you decide just to keep on going. You don't raise a lot more money. You're not trying to change the world. You have great customers. Things are going good. You're making your $130,000 a year. You enjoy it. That's a lifestyle business. We're not talking about either one of those. We're talking about the next 2. The definition of success is at some point your company becomes liquid. What I mean by that is when you issue shares in your company, nobody's going to buy those shares from you. There's really, typically in your articles of incorporation, you can't even sell the shares. They're not liquid. You can't turn it into money. You need to achieve liquidity, and liquidity happens in really just one of two ways primarily. One is somebody comes along and acquires your company, and they're going to take all your shares and they're going to give you X amount of money. Or you go public. Public is really just another way of having your shares be bought. You just don't sell all of your shares. So for those of you that are not familiar with an initial public offering or going public, it means maybe you have your 100 shares and you decide that you're going to give up 30 of them to the public, so the public can now buy and sell 30 shares. And that allows now all your shares to be liquid, and employees can now start exchanging them on the open market. And those stock options they got at 20 cents, maybe the shares are now worth $40, and they can make a bunch of money because they became liquid. In either case, you're selling your company. In an M&A, you're selling the whole company. On an IPO, you're just selling some percentage of it. But this is really where our focus is. So if you're going to be successful, it's not because you're the world's best at coming up with an auto password sign-on for mobile phones. It's because you allowed your shares to become liquid. Never, ever forget that. So what does that mean? What are the likelihoods here? So I'm going to show you some charts. The reality is, so if you're successful, it's either because somebody buys your company or you go IPO. Those are the only two ways. There's no other ways. Those are it. Again, under my definition. Lifestyle business of $130K a year is not success per my definition. So there's only two. So let's look at those two. I'll keep this quick, but if you look over on the left-hand side, before calendar year 2000 is a little bit of a history lesson, and I lived through that. IPOs were actually the most common thing, and M&A was not that common. And then with the meltdown of the high-tech boom of the late 1990s, the SEC in the United States came in, put in all these controls and regulations, because in 96, 97, and 98, and 99, all these IPOs were happening that were just ridiculous. SEC came in, really clamped down, and you can see the impact. I mean, IPOs basically just stopped because nobody wanted to go through the pain and the anguish that the SEC and others put in place. And you see that continue on through the end of till 2009. During that period of time, there was only about 10% of exits were IPOs. The next chart, if you look through 2016, every single year, the highest number of IPOs was only 3% in a quarter in 2015. So if you are successful, there's a 97% or more chance the way that's going to be is because somebody acquires you. If you look up until 2019, that trend continues. The blue is M&A, the orange is IPO. And you can see that 2019 basically is probably going to be a drop from last year. Moral of the story is, if you are successful, and I want to be clear, obviously if your goal is to be the best auto password sign-on for mobile phones, I'm not saying to take your eye off the ball of that, because that is what you do. But as one of the leaders of the organization, never also forget that it's all about making your company liquid, and the way that's going to happen, 95%, is because somebody's going to acquire you. My point is, as you raise a bunch of money, and you structure your company, and you start your company, and obviously you're doing this to be successful, and if you know there's a 95% chance that if you are successful, it's going to be because of this thing, think about that thing now. My guess would be 2% of people starting companies think about this thing now. So part of my talk is to be kind of like a missionary. Think about it now, because that is the definition of success. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to try to get you not to think about it, which I'll talk about. So 95% chance that if you are successful, it's because somebody acquires you. Also, you should be self-aware of what the likely outcome is going to be. So if you look at the chart up here, how big is this deal going to be? This chart, I think, goes to around 2011, so it is historical, but the average or median, because you get rid of some of the huge M&As that are out there, but the medium M&A was about $10 million, meaning that if you are acquired during this period of time, more than likely it was about $10 million. And all these numbers here are for people in, I'm assuming most of you are in software, internet, social media, that kind of thing, consumer hardware. If you look at numbers through 2016, same thing, give or take. It went from 10 million to 23. We're still not talking 500 million. If you look at the numbers most current, this goes through the end of 2017, you're still looking at a median of about 40. So whether it's 10, 20, 40, somewhere in there, that's the number that you should be thinking about. I'm not saying you should be happy with that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have passion that you're going to grow a company that's worth $1 billion. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But in the spirit of let facts be your friends, realize that probably, based on history, and everybody's different, and all of those caveats, but probably you're going to sell for something in the 20 to 60 range, if you're successful. And you want to keep that in mind. That sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money if you structure things correctly. And one thing, so Google continues to be the #1 acquirer of companies out there. Cisco would be number 2, Microsoft's number 3, Salesforce is up there. These guys are very active, and they're also, they support what's being said here, right? The average deal they do is about 20 million, and they really like companies that are pre-revenue. They really like companies that are pre-revenue. And I'll come back to revenue in a moment. But having revenue, having a big valuation doesn't necessarily help you. 5th point. Knowing this, meaning, remember, at the end of the day, if you're successful, it's because you achieve liquidity through being acquired. Probably that acquisition is going to be somewhere in the range that I discussed. What kind of things do you want to do now to make sure you're happy later? Or at least you're aware of what happiness could mean. So there's some traps. So again, we're here talking about Series A. We're here to talk about you raising $2.5 to $3 or more million through Series A. You're going to do an equity round. This is the chart that I showed you earlier. I changed the axis at the bottom a little bit. So as you go up, you're typically raising more money. And as you go out, there's typically a desire on the part of people giving you money to want to have control over you and your life. Because they're more professional. They're super smart. They've invested in 180 companies. They know what they're doing better than you know what you're doing. They want to have control over their money. Whereas if you raise $25,000 from your dad, they're probably not going to give you too much of a hard time there. Two ends of the spectrum. You're here right now, getting ready to move to the traditional VC side. Let's talk about VCs for a moment, because probably if you do raise a Series A, and people, I guess to be clear, people use terms like Series A all over the place, and there is no one definition. For me, just so you know where I'm coming from, when I say Series A, I'm talking about it has to be an equity round, meaning we're not talking about convertible debt anymore. We're talking about people are coming in, and when they're done doing their investment, they actually own part of your company. And typically it means you have professional investors, people that are doing this to make money for themselves and the people that gave them money. And in case you don't know how VCs work, because some of you may not, A venture capitalist is basically somebody running a business, just like you're running a business. So what they do, they don't necessarily have a lot of money when they start this thing. They may have a lot of connections, they may have great success in doing deals, they may be corporate attorneys, but what they do is they go to people that are super rich, and they try to raise a fund. Let's say they're going to raise a fund of $500 million. They try to get somebody to put in $50 million, somebody else puts in $25 million, somebody else puts in $100 million. They raise this fund. And what they do is they get 2.5% or 4% of that money to manage it, with the promise back to those super rich people or to pension funds or whatever it might be. But money, promises back to those people that they're going to give them a great return, because this is risky what they're doing. So if I put $50 million in the bank, I'm probably going to put that in at like 1% interest. If I give a VC $50 million, I expect to get a big return. Like you see up there, they may expect a 20% return year over year, because they know that they can also lose their money. So as they look at you, the VC, they want to make sure that you're going to return that money to them. So keep in mind, as you work with a VC, this isn't a person with a ton of money and it's their money and so on. That VC you're working with is running a business no different than you. They get paid 2.5% to 4% of all the money they raised, and they better return it. And just like they're going to beat the heck out of you if they invest in you and you don't do the right thing, these VCs have a regular meeting with their investors that are typically called general partners, limited partners, and so on. They have regular meetings, and if they say that they're not working well with their companies, that VC that beats the heck out of you is getting the heck beat out of them. The more you understand, again, purpose of this talk is you're thinking about taking a bunch of money from a VC. The more you understand where VCs are coming from and how they operate and what they need to do, you're going to negotiate with them better. Because while they are going to be your partner and your friend, you do need to go negotiate with them and understand where they're coming from. And when they beat the heck out of you, don't take it too personal, because they're getting the heck beat out of them. And when they ask you to do this or that, the more you understand where they're coming from, you can understand why they're doing that. So if we look at the slide up front, they need to return a bunch of money back, right? They need to return a lot. So if they have a $100 million fund, they maybe need to have this thing turn into $300 or $400 million. But they also understand that only about 20, historically, why this is true, I don't know, but for the last 30 years, the number just stays the same, because there are tons of groups that measure this. But about 20% of all investments actually return something to VCs. That means 80% of all investments are going to fail. They're not going to get anything back, and they know that. When they're sitting there and they write a check for you and everything else, they may like you, they may believe in you, they may think you're better than the next guy, but they also know as they're looking at you that there's a 80% chance you're going to fail. You're going to let them down, right? That's just the reality of it, right? It's statistically. And typically, without getting into all the details, because of the length of time money gets tied up, they can only invest, just if you are that guy giving $50 million, usually you give it to them for 10 years. See, that money is tied up for a long time. VCs can usually only invest that money about once, because typically it takes 6-7 years before a liquidity event happens. And so in order to make all this work, that 20% of companies better return like 10, 20, 30x return on investment. So they're looking for those people. And history has shown that they can find it. So like you've heard about the huge IPOs of Dropbox or other people. A VC firm may do a fund of, say, $500 million. Let's say they put $12 million into Dropbox. That one investment in Dropbox gave them everything they needed to make all of their limited partners that gave them money happy. So what they're doing is they're looking for those unicorns. right? The ones that are just going to have that such a huge return that at the end of the day, you only really need one or two to make it all work. Now, obviously, they'd love to have every one of them be that, but that's not realistic and that's not going to happen. And understanding from the VC's point of view that there's this culture that they really just need one or two is extremely essential for you to understand. And I'm going to explain that over the next few slides. Because there's a problem. Let's say a VC comes along, and some of this math I'm showing you, if it doesn't necessarily make sense to you, make sure you do research offline so it does make sense to you. Because again, if you are jumping off the diving board into the water of accepting a bunch of money and you don't understand these terms, that's an indicator you should not be doing this yet. And understanding these terms are not hard. But things like pre-money, post-money, percentages are important. So if a VC invests $2 million in your company and you have an $8 million pre-money valuation, this is a super, super common scenario. $8 million, you've done seeds up until now, you're doing pretty well, not knocking the ball out of the park yet, things are looking shiny, time is right to do a Series A, you're going to do an equity round, $2 million is the right number. They value you at $8 million, $10 million post-money. If this VC invests that, then you have they're going to basically have 20% of your company. Okay? So they put in $2 million, they have 20%. So to get to 10x, remember their goal in life is if you're going to be successful, you're going to be 10, 20, 30x. They're really thinking 20, but let's 10x, they're not going to hate you, right? Let's say 10x. So if they need to have a $20 million return. They need to get $20 million back if they put $2 million in. Well, the only way that that's going to work is if you sell the company for $100 million. And you saw, just based on statistics that you can look up, average M&A deal for a company like yours is probably going to be more like 30 or 40 or 20 or something like that. The point of me showing you this slide, again, as I said at the beginning, is not that you shouldn't take any money or not that you shouldn't work with these people, but just know that when they slide $2 million to you at an $8 million pre-money valuation, they're probably not going to be happy with you unless you have your company be bought for $100 million. And that's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. So just know that. Because the way you're going to work with the VC, the way you're going to organize your company, the way you're going to grow it, I guarantee you, if you truly know that, you're going to do different things. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, when you take that $2 million, they will have protective provisions. They are going to have a lot of control over your company, guaranteed. They're going to control issuing new stock, selling your company, who you work with, etc. This is going to be your partner whether you like it or not. And you just need to make sure that you're aligned on expectations. Very rarely does this get talked about. No way, shape, or form is the VC going to look at you and go, now before you take this $2 million, do you understand that statistically you're probably going to sell for $40 million or less, and I'm going to be expecting more than that, and we're probably going to be really mad at each other at some point? No. All they're going to tell you is passion, passion, passion. Swing for the fence. Don't worry about an exit. This thing is going to be huge. I believe in you. You're amazing. I haven't seen a team like yours in a long time. It was hard for me to get it through my partners, but I believe in you. I'm in the foxhole with you. You and I are going to be the next Dropbox. Right? That's what they're going to say to you. And that's fine. But you should just know what the reality is. And that's not bad. They have to do that. They're running a business. Just like when you sell a product, you don't necessarily tell the customer every little thing that could potentially go wrong. There's no difference. Okay, the key here is you have different perspectives. For all of you sitting in the room that are entrepreneurs thinking about doing Series A, you're that yellow rectangle there. All you want to do is execute on your passion. You want your dreams to come true. You want to engage customers. You want to make a bunch of money. And then, yeah, oh, by the way, you got to talk to these VCs and angels and so on to give you the fuel to keep the car going. From the VC's point of view, they have 10 investments. You're just one. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. And if they had you all in a room at the same time and they looked at you, 8 of you would have, you're going to die soon, X's on your forehead. They're not going to tell you this, but that's how they're looking at you, right? So what they're going to do, which is scary, but they will, is if you're one of the ones that doesn't have a red X, you're one of the happy ones at that moment, they're going to ride you as far as they possibly can. And even if you have a red X, they could be wrong. Companies turn around, miracles happen. They're going to ride you as well, because their only goal is to get at least 2 of you, or at least 1 of you, to be the 10X or the 20X out there. And through their protective provisions, they're going to control that. So even though you may want to exit early, even though things may look good, even though you may want to do this or that, they're not going to let you do that. Because you're only there, you only exist to hopefully be one of their 10 or 20 X's. Just remember that. This is just a fact. Let me give you a real world scenario to kind of wrap up this portion. Again, tables like this should become second nature to you as you engage VCs. So in this case, let's say you start your company with a pre-money of $2 million. You just started it. It's an idea. Maybe you just got done with an accelerator program and you have some kind of an initial product, or at least a demo. Pre-money of $2 million, you have $500,000 in angel, friends and family money. Your cap table is going to kind of look like that. You have a post money of 2.5. You do well, right? You take that money, you engage customers, things are looking good. You're now in this room because you decided that you're going to raise a Series A. You're going to do an equity round, and you're going to do it with a VC. So in this case, you raise $3 million on $10 million pre, just to have a different example. The cap table is going to kind of look like that, meaning the VC is going to have, give or take, 23% ownership. You, the CEO, have 31% in this example. Maybe it's spread amongst founders. I mean, there's obviously a million examples. But at this stage, you've started your company, things are going well. Keep in mind, the VC either has a green or a red X on your forehead soon after this. Then, let's say a year goes by. Everything you've done has been going really, really well. You've engaged the marketplace great. You've gotten lucky. Your team's executed even better than you thought. You formed this amazing relationship with Microsoft or Google or Facebook or whoever it may be. And you're in this meeting, and the VP of marketing pulls you aside and says, hey, Randy, everything's going incredibly well. In fact, we made a strategic decision that space you're in is where we want to be. We think you're the right partner. We want to start discussions where we actually make you part of the team by acquiring you. And we're ready to move fast. We'll make an offer of $40 million. We'll buy your company for $40 million. Let us know what you think. Okay? So unless you're different than every other single person on the planet, you're going to try to refrain your excitement in that meeting, because that's a great honor. Whether you take it or not, it's not a bad day, right? Things have gone great. In your mind, you're kind of thinking, wow, like 40 is a lot. But you're not sure what that means for you exactly. You kind of know about this cap table stuff. You go back to your car, not quite sure. You do the math, you look something up on your laptop, and you see that with $40 million, you personally are going to walk away with 12. Okay? And let's say that you also know that if Google, say it's Google trying to acquire you, if they don't do this, they'll do their own thing, or maybe you know that maybe the technology is not going as well as you thought, and maybe you should do something sooner than later. So the fact you're getting this offer now is also quite a miracle. But no matter what, you're just happy. So you race back to your office, you get on the phone with your favorite board of directors and your investors, and you let them know what a great day it's been. We're all going to make a ton of money. Let's talk about how we move forward with this deal with Facebook. Don't be surprised if the VC, that's your partner, immediately says, no, we're not doing that. That's ridiculous. Because from the VC's point of view, they're going to get a 3x return on their investment. That's all they get from their point of view. Because they're going to get about 9 million back. Only 9 million back. They put 3 in. It's a 3x. That doesn't feed what they need to do back to their limited partners. They're more than likely going to tell you no. They're going to tell you no for 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't match their 10x or higher. And number 2 is, you're obviously doing really well, right? And their other 8 guys are dying. So they're going to take the horse that's actually doing extremely well. I mean, if it's gone from a valuation of 13 million to 40 in 1 year, and everybody loves you, and you're obviously doing good things, well, it's going to be 400 million a year from now. And maybe you will be the next Dropbox. Maybe you will be, out of the 125 companies they invested in this fund, maybe you will be that thing that makes everybody happy, and this partner was the one that figured it out. They're going to say no. And there's going to be friction, I guarantee you, because as you go back to work the next day knowing you could have gone home to your husband or your spouse or your mom or your dad or anybody and said, we have $12 million in the bank. Instead, you basically have no salary because you're saving it as a startup. It's 2 different worlds, right? So there is guaranteed to be friction if you haven't thought about this in advance. VC is not evil. The VC is just doing what he needs or she needs to do. This is not a bad person. The only person bad here would be you if you don't know this going into it all. So there's things you can do. It isn't like you're just screwed. Like, for example, if you genuinely know that your company may be in a little bit of trouble, and you genuinely know that, and you believe that, and you genuinely know that there may be a chance to do an exit at around 40, if you just come running in saying I have a $40 million deal, the VC is going to simply assume you want $12 million and you want to buy an island somewhere. They're not going to assume you're looking out for the shareholders' interest. So what you do is, before you even entertain the idea of M&A, you may just want to have some discussions with the VCs. Hey, I'm not panicking, nor do I think you should panic, but I'm seeing that there may be some storm clouds on the horizon. Good communication is always the key when you're managing exits. Because if you share all that, then you come along and you talk about the 40 million deal, you've done it in the right context that that VC can relate to. My point is that you want to make sure that when they look at these numbers, that you've given them the right context to look in. Otherwise, the outcome may not be good for you. Does that make sense? Let me wrap up on a few points, and then I think we'll have a little bit of time for questions. Item number 6, founders. So we've talked a lot about raising money, structuring your company, etc. The founders you have. It's essential, a couple of things. One is, obviously you should have complementary strengths. Obviously you should like each other. Very importantly, you should share a common culture, because the culture is the thing that's going to keep your whole organization together. That's going to keep new hires who come in want to stay on even when things get tough. Founders, always make sure that founders vest exactly the same as every other employee. Even though it sounds good as founders to go, hey, there's 4 of us, we're all equal, we have a 10% employee option pool, the other 90% right now we just split 4 ways, we own the company. The bad thing there is, just like girlfriend, boyfriends, marriages, whatever it might be, you love each other one day, you may not love each other tomorrow. Things can change fast. If somebody that's a founder truly has 25% ownership in the company, and all of a sudden you find out they're not really that interested, they're not really showing up anymore, they're really busy doing something else, they're perfectly happy seeing you do all the work and they don't do it, or they want to go in a different direction, there's no way to get rid of that person. And if somebody genuinely has 25% ownership of the company, they can really mess up any goals you have of raising money, doing this, doing that. Usually you figure out if founders don't work pretty quick in the first couple of months. So you want to structure it such that a founder can be removed. It's just practical. Because even though you all love each other, you all went to college, you all work together, this or that, things can change. This is a business. You're doing it as a business, structured as business terms, right? You're not getting married. It isn't love, right? Do you want to have the right culture? Yeah, but it's business. And so you want to make sure that you have it be structured. The reality is it doesn't matter if you don't do that anyways. If somebody comes along to acquire you, they're not going to let you just get 25% of the proceeds anyways. They're going to make you go back and get on a vesting pool anyways. So it really doesn't change anything. The point I make up here on the slide as well is be very careful joining a team with somebody that's been super, super successful before. It sounds good on the surface. Hey, I'm joining this startup. This woman, Rachel's amazing. She sold 3 companies. The last one she sold was for $750 million. She made about $100 million herself. She has a ton of money. She has 1 million connections. She's the perfect co-founder. She started a company. She wants me and another person to join. We're going to create this thing and make it amazing. Just keep in mind, always know the perspectives of the people around you. I guarantee you, Rachel in this situation probably is only going to be happy if the next company sells for more than $750 million. Probably not going to happen. Because if Rachel really did make all that money, unless she's some superhuman person, she will be spending a lot of time with her friends in Europe and Asia. There will be boats involved. The passion was not there as on the first ones. And there may be a deal that comes along where you can sell the company for $85 million, I'll make a bunch of money. She just won't do it because she sold one for 20, one for 40, one for 750. I'm not going to sell one for 80. It's my money. I'm not going to do it. So just again, no. Everybody should have an understanding of what exits are. I know I've made this point a bunch of times. I'll make it one more time. If you are successful, it's only because you're liquid. There's a 95% chance that liquidity will happen because somebody buys you. And there's a great chance that it's not going to be a $750 million deal. Always remember those points, right? As you run your company, I'm going to do it on this slide and I'm going to do it on the next one as well. You should put in processes where if there's ever any language in any deal you do that uses the word exclusive, everybody has to stop. Everybody has to review it. You have your corporate attorney review it, because I've seen so many companies do really, really well, and then all of a sudden it turns out that there's an exclusive deal for something with somebody, and it makes everything stop on fundraising, M&A, whatever it might be. So you should have a policy that no matter what it is, it could seem insignificant. Yeah, it's exclusive, but it's just with our manufacturing partner. Well, it's your you're not going to build a product otherwise, right? And so you should have a policy that if you're the CEO or one of the founders, if somebody signs any deal that has the word exclusive in it, or you do anything strategic and everybody didn't stop and look at it and in writing sign off on it and have your corporate attorney involved, then that's like you're fired kind of stuff, right? There should be total controls on that. Very similarly, on IP licensing, I've seen a lot of CEOs, even CTOs and people in charge of engineering, kind of lose sight of what's really going on in the organization. They're more focused on sales. They're more focused on going out and engaging customers and partners. All they really want is, they promised a partner they were going to have a product next Tuesday, and to the certain extent, all they care about is that it happened next Tuesday. All of a sudden, the engineering team starts mashing up a lot of technology they license and bring in. The CEO and other people don't even know that's happening. but the product looks really good. Somebody wants to come along and acquire them, or somebody wants to invest in them. You do even 10 seconds worth of due diligence, and you find out the engineering team really didn't develop anything. There's no differentiation. There's no core competencies. All they did was license this, license this, license that. And a VC who does their job will find that out. And they're going to go, what am I investing in? I mean, your engineering team is great at like product integration, but that's not going to solve anything. Where's the core IP? And I'm not talking patents, but there has to be core differentiable IP algorithms, something that somebody's going to want to acquire or invest in. You'd be surprised how easy this is to happen because you're too busy to work closely with the engineering team, and you're so busy running around the world talking at conferences or meeting with new partners. And like I said, all you care about is the deliverable is done next Tuesday. And the engineering team senses that, and they'll just license it and not buy it. And then the final point I'll bring up is around sales. Also very, very controversial, what I'll say. In my mind, I recommend that you avoid doing sales for as long as humanly possible. Avoid it. Now, I'm not saying you maybe don't take a little bit of money here or there. Maybe it's NRE, non-reoccurring engineering money. But the idea, when I talk about sales, I mean, okay, we now have a product. I have people selling my product, and I want to make this much this month, that much next month, and so on. And obviously, you want that number to go up. That's what I mean when I say you're now doing sales. You could do one-offs here and there just to help pay the bills. Now, I'm not stupid. I understand the benefit of doing sales. There is no better market confirmation of what you're doing than people giving you money for it. There's no better success than being able to show truthfully that you have a 20% quarter-over-quarter revenue growth, and you've done that for 9 quarters. And it's really great to have money coming in, because you don't want to go back and ask for another $2 million and give up more equity and so on. Those are all really, really good things. But everything I just said is really, really hard to do, right? The downsides of raising money, the downside of going out and having a sales strategy is that there's a really good chance that all those nice things I said aren't going to happen. And the best way for somebody to measure you, it's hard to measure you on product development. It's kind of hard to measure you hiring and firing correctly. It's kind of hard to measure you on community engagement. But when you start talking about revenue, that's really clear. And if you do 20,000 one quarter and 40 the next and 80 the next, and then you do 30, that's all anybody's going to talk about. What happened? They're not going to say, wow, that's cool, you went from 20 to 40 to 80. They're going to say, all they're going to talk about is, you went from 80 to 40, what happened? 80 to 30, what happened? Right? So that all of the attention is going to be on that. And is that really what you want to have all the attention be when you're talking to a VC or an M&A person? Probably not. Probably the fact you went from 80 to 30 means nothing. It just simply means that a deal got pushed out a quarter, whatever it might mean. It probably in reality means nothing. But if you don't manage it correctly, it's become your entire world. And so all of a sudden, you're a really valuable company because you have the best engineering team, the best product development, you have a great track record of delivering, customers love you, but all of that's thrown away because you went from 80,000 to 30,000 in a quarter-to-quarter change. And the more common example is actually worse than that. Probably you have this engineering team, product development, roadmap, great partners, everything is going great. The reality is when you start selling, it's probably going to be like $5,000 in a quarter. And you're going to you want to go from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. And so here you are, the CEO of the company, you just raised $2.5 million, you have a great product idea, wonderful customer engagement, everything is all great, and you're freaking killing yourself to get $3,000 because you have a board meeting next week. Really? This is the right thing that you should be doing right now, is going out and just begging a customer to sign a PO for $3,000? Morgan Stanley, you love my virtual reality analytics. Come on, can you do a $3,000 deal next week? Randy, I love you, but this has to go to purchasing and has to go to this. Yeah, but I got a board meeting next week. They're going to think you're an idiot, right? They look at you as a strategic partner, and you're sitting there on your knees begging for $3,000 so your board, who you promised you're going to have month-over-month revenue growth, isn't disappointed because you went from 8,000 to 4,000. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, the way I say it is ridiculous. I see it every day. I mean, you find yourself in that world, and that's kind of gets back to this macro thinking thing. When all of a sudden you look down and you realize you're doing this, stop, right? Because it's really stupid, but people do it all the time. And as you think about making your company be real, think about what you tell the VC for revenue, what you tell the VC for sales. And I'm not saying don't get on that treadmill, but just know what could happen once you do. So those were 9 things. Let's listen there again. I just wanted to highlight as far as making you more aware of what taking money means. What does it really mean to raise a Series A? Hopefully you found it, at least a little bit interesting. Everything is just from experience that I had. But I think we have 3 or 4 minutes if there's any comments or questions.
So everything that I've heard about the Series A says, don't come talk to me unless you have 100,000 or 20,000 which is a little contradictory to, and so have you seen Series A raises where there's no sales?
Yeah, for sure. The question is, he's heard that if you want to come to me with a Series A, you better have 100,000 a quarter or a year or whatever it might be. I mean, you're going to hear that from some people. I mean, it kind of depends on the market. If you have a relatively non-differentiated but exciting consumer electronics product, then yeah, the emphasis is probably going to be more on show me the sales, because that's really what your company is going to be all about. If you're creating the most amazing algorithms for sentiment analysis that's going to change the future of financial banking, then you're probably going to be able to do the Series A on confirmation the technology works. So it really depends a lot upon which segment you're in, what they're going to prioritize. My only point would be just know, based on your segment, know what VCs are going to want, and just know that if you signed up for that or go for that, what the ramifications are that go along with it.
If you have access to non-VC money, what would propel you to still go ahead and take that more control in?
Yeah, quick question is, if you have access to non-VC money, what would cause you to go for the VC? I mean, my first feeling is, the short answer is, if you always want to get money that has the least amount of bad things that go with it, right? So if your cousin can give you $2 million and they just say, hey, I just love you, obviously do that, right? Because it comes with no, I mean, not to be a joke, but on a serious note, it comes with no downside, right? They're not taking control of your company, they're not doing this or that. Now, this all said, I really don't want to come off as I hate VCs or I'm VC bashing. I'm not. It's just important to know they're running a business. The good thing about VCs is fabulous connections. They will genuinely help you a lot. They will help you a lot till the very end. They obviously won't bring you in if they think you're going to embarrass them, but that's unlikely. But they have great connections. They are wise. They can give you good advice on should you do this deal or not do that deal. Just know that at the end of the day, they're going to look out for themselves. So, for example, on that example, you were offered $40 million and they said no. Clearly, if they were thinking out for you, they would say take the $12 million off the table, but they have to think out for themselves, because at the end of the day, they report to their investors. They told the investors they were going to do a certain model. They can't not do that, right? But that's an area where your goals and theirs have now diverged. And my purpose of this whole talk is just, you shouldn't be surprised. My biggest frustration is I talk with entrepreneurs every day. 90% of the time, this person is surprised. How could that VC do that? I thought they were my friend. I thought we were doing this to make money. They're going to make $9 million. I just don't understand. The whole thing confuses me. I'm like, what? There's nothing confusing here at all. I think the main thing is just always do it with your eyes wide open. But if you can, get money through simpler terms, and if you feel that the VCs are not going to provide so much value in introductions and credibility that those extra terms are worth it, then do not take their money. Because these are nasty terms. Like, for example, if you can get this house, but if you take mortgage terms that are riskier and higher interest and everything else, they'll give you more money, you can live in a nicer house, fine. If living in a really, really nice house is good for you, but just know, if you're not smart, that will come back to haunt you, right? In terms of higher interest rate, balloon payments, whatever it might be, you may just want to stay here, even though it's not as nice. I mean, it's really the same analogy. It's terms of money.
With this discussion over the company's agency, it's probably a natural step to get the employee stock options before even discussing with VCs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would have the company structured first. I would have the employee stock option pool, at least most of it, put in place. That way, if, I'm assuming that if you're going to the point you're raising $2.5–3 million, you probably have 6 or 7 or 10 or 12 employees. I mean, I'm not sure if I would recommend doing this if it's just you and another person. So you already have a team, and you already have a team that's probably more than founders, and you want those people to be incentivized, and you're probably not paying them huge salaries, and so you're doing something already in that area. I'm just saying do it right through an employee stock option program.
I guess my underlying question is that would it be natural for the VC to try to maybe get favorable numbers, a percentage, so lower stock options for the employees? Is that common practice, or is there like a benchmark percentage that both the founders and the VCs can easily agree upon?
Yeah, there is. I mean, the benchmark is usually have about a 10% pool, and when that gets taken up, then you would allocate another one that everybody would get diluted on. So it's in that case. I mean, the VCs obviously, I mean, whether you're the founder or the VC, you get torn in two ways. On one hand, you don't want to give up any shares to anybody, but on the other hand, you're only going to be successful if the team, the people doing the real work, are properly incented to do that. And so they usually err on the side of making sure people are properly incented, even to the extent of taking it from the founders and giving it to that really good CTO or programming lead or marketing person or whatever it might be. They really want to have their skin in the game. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, and I'll be around if you want to chat about anything else.